Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Dual Hearts. It's time to return to Parfait's dream to finish the last 4 stages of the meat collection minigame, as odd as that sounds. We also only picked up about 38% total completion, including all 100 rings, in our first run through, because I was basically just going for a clean run of a full circuit of the dream. This time we'll pick up the collectibles that are off the beaten path a bit. So this game is called Meat Collector. It's pretty much identical to the first version, except there are no sheep, and there's a time limit. Let's briefly show the failure mode of this level. As it turns out, this is the first time I encountered it while playing this minigame, during the second iteration. For some reason, actually I know exactly why, because of the sheep that jumps into the water. Hitting the water is given a really high value in terms of the amount of noise it creates. On top of that, I was sliding off the side of the hill, and the grass is actually also considered very noisy when you're walking across it. So the combination of sliding off the hill into the water means you basically die instantly when that happens. This is a continued hazard, especially when trying to pick up that gold Issamon that I tried to show you during the first minigame, which I do not pick up until the very end of this particular version of the game. Nothing new here. The fact that there's no sheep in this version means it's actually pretty easy, because there's more than enough time to pick up all 10 pieces of meat within the 3 minutes that we're given. Pick up this tummy up fragment, which somehow I didn't see the first time around. Just right there on the other side of the hill. It's a little worrisome running up the hill like that, because sliding down it again is a huge problem. Move up quickly to the house. This you could actually see during the first stage of the minigame. In the corner of the fence, there's another tummy up fragment. I believe this is our 4th out of a total of 7 in this stage. And this is what I was talking about before, there's actually a piece of meat on this mailbox usually. That was the 10th when finishing this particular version of the game. But before we go see Parfait, now that the time limit's gone, I think I'll go pick up the remainder of the collectibles. I mean, he is right down there. Could just go, but since we have a little extra time, let's wander around for a while. First and foremost, on the other side there, right there. Somehow I missed this too during one of the early iterations. There's a gold Issamon right there. Of course, there's one under the bridge, which is really easy to get if you just wedge the camera under there and actually can see the angle you have to jump at. And there's this fence at the back of the level, with one more gold Issamon behind it. So that's 4 we've actually picked up on our run through Parfait's dream alone, which is more than we've got in every other level combined. I guess the fact that this is an optional dream means that it sort of breaks the general hierarchy of how hard it is to find certain collectibles. Considering the early stages are sort of engineered to get you dream energy to make sure that you continue to progress through the temple. Of course, now I jump when I'm trying to talk to somebody. It's still a little unclear to me how that mapping works. Of course, at the moment, Stompy's happy to take more dream energy, but he gets increasingly tired that all the prizes are dream energy as the game goes on. And again, we're booted out, but of course we can return instantaneously. Game 3 is Where's the Beef 2? It's the same as Where's the Beef 1, except there are twice as much meat, and the sheep are 10 times as aggravating. Come on, stop dancing, help me. Yeah, there's a sheep here that actually talks about, for some reason this doesn't appear until the 3rd version of the game, that sheep actually tells you that different surfaces wake the dog up faster, which we already knew from experimentation in the first 2 levels. Now check this guy out. He's still here with his little waiting tube. This time he asks you a trivia question. It's always the same question. The answer is always Florence. You have to answer it correctly, and it's the only way you can get him to wait the necessary 10 seconds to allow you to use your charge attack to knock his inner tube off. And of course you get a little bumble dance for doing the puzzle correctly. Next is a sheep on top of the roof, balancing the plates. This time, instead of standing stationary, he wanders around like a maniac. It's completely random, so it's actually pretty difficult to avoid. As it turns out, though, if you walk into him, you get the little buzz noise for doing a puzzle incorrectly, and it doesn't even completely wake the dog up. There's not really any real problem. Anyway, now check out the back, check out the fence. You can see the bugle-playing sheep right there on top of that fence post. This is the most difficult part of this minigame. What you actually have to do here, or at least the easiest way to address this without driving yourself insane, is to get on top of this little fence post here, which I didn't realize you could do the first 8 or 9 times I tried this minigame. You can also barely make it from the hill you can see in the distance. You have to move along the top of the fence towards the sheep. There's always at least 2 pieces of meat in this fence, so you can't just not show up at this part of the level to not trigger this sheep. he also asks you a trivia question, this time about how many halls of treasure there are in the Temple of Dreams. No matter whether you answer this right or wrong, he always plays the bugle. If you answer it incorrectly, he plays you a consolation tune. If you answer it correctly, he plays you victory fanfare. It's exactly the same. So your only recourse is basically to already be on top of the fence so that you can knock the bugle away. Because as you can see, a single bugle blow doesn't wake the dog up, but it makes it very difficult to traverse the rest of the level while trying not to wake him up. I remember while playing the first version of this game, I actually felt really bad being so mean to all the sheep, knocking all their stuff away while they're trying to play, but this level really makes it clear they're just messing with you, so I don't feel so bad anymore. Anyway, the important thing is, eventually I got 20 after about 45 minutes of attempts, most of which you didn't have to watch, thankfully. And we can return to Parfait for our third reward, which of course is Dream Energy. Yeah, we worked pretty hard, I guess. That gives us 10, which means we can open the first portal in the Temple of Dreams, the one with the big 10 sign in front of it. Shocking, I know. Stompy's starting to get the picture. Soon indeed, in fact. We'll return right now. Yep, Meat Collector 2. Again, it's the same 20 pieces of meat that we had to pick up in Where's the Beef 2, except there are no sheep and a time limit of 5 minutes instead of 3. Again, especially since it took me so many tries to complete Where's the Beef 2, I was already really familiar with the location, like I said, the general location of the 20 pieces of meat. So completing this was actually fairly easy. As you see, I had 2 minutes left. I in fact could have completed this in the 3-minute time limit that we got in the Meat Collector 1. That's how easy this level was. Basically, the real challenge, the entire challenge in this level is basically puzzling out the sheep in the first and third iteration of the minigame, and after that, it's mostly just the same mechanics over and over again. So, suffice it to say, the 14 or so minutes of footage that I took for this particular minigame were culled from about an hour and a half. That's about how much is actually entertaining to watch, in my opinion. Yeah, probably Dream Energy. In fact, definitely Dream Energy. And of course we'll take it. We're aiming for all 100. Return one more time for the final version of the minigame. This is rough. Silence of the Hams. A double pun. Pretty bad. The general gist of this is that the threshold for which he wakes up is much lower than in the previous 4 games, but in reality it's not particularly noticeable. At this point, we know the layout of the level pretty well, we know what to avoid, and there are, again, no sheep. So at first I took it pretty slowly, because as you can see, he does wake up pretty quickly. I tried to do this level mostly with Stompy, walking around, because the faster you move, the faster he wakes up. But as it turns out, jumping doesn't really do anything, because in a bit of brilliance, remember that Parfait can't hear Bumble yelling, meaning you can jump all you want, and this shouting he keeps doing, that little ear flap noise he makes, doesn't affect how awake or asleep Parfait is. Now, of course, Parfait is right underneath the mailbox, so while I was on top of the mailbox after picking up the 20th piece of meat, somehow I missed him because I couldn't get the camera to angle downwards. But the important thing is, again, for the 5th time, we get a piece of Dream Energy. This gives us 93% completion for this dream, but most importantly, we never have to play these minigames again. We will be returning here to open up those 3 bombable pyramids that we passed by over the course of this level, but that I will do in passing when we acquire the ability to do that. So we finished that, and so now we'll just finish off exploring the rest of this little village area. There's a little storehouse and a windmill. You would think this is a hiding place for Sonno stones or something, or maybe for another person later in the game. I'm not entirely certain yet if someone sleeps here. I don't think there's any particular reason to come in here other than just to check it out. There is a reason why I was exploring this for no particular reason now, not just to show off the inside of the storehouse. I'll get to that in a little bit. You can sort of see the big cave carved into that tree behind the storehouse. It's fenced in. Anyway, let's check out this house. The house of Meg and Hannah, the pregnant woman and little girl we saw in the last video. It's called Spencer's house. Spencer, we presume, is the father. But again, because people in this village don't really show up until after you've been introduced to them in specific cutscenes, it makes the place look really sparse. It's cute little children's drawings that are presumably from Hannah. It actually makes them look like a single parent if you kind of, or Meg look like a single mother of two, or soon to be two, just because the father is actually impossible to find right now. It's a little creepy. There's Yars and Tucker's house. We saw that last episode. I have no reason to go back in there. I mean, I actually do, but I sort of neglected that at the moment. We will be back there later. There's a reason to go back into the sheep stream right now. So, I know there's a way to get over this fence, but as it turns out, there's actually a ladder that appears on the side of the storehouse that doesn't appear now and won't appear until a completely arbitrary, sort of fanfareless point later in the story. That's the only way to get over that fence and into that cave. We can't do it now, but we will be doing it shortly. Just threw me for a while, and I sort of assumed I should be able to get up there now. And there's Hannah. Of course she's not lost. How could you possibly get lost in these woods? And so, in case you've been noticing the hourglass on the top, we've crossed over to midnight, or I should say sunset, meaning we get the little cutscene showing that it's turned to night. It's usually actually very pretty. This universe apparently does have a Milky Way. And, of course, as usual, our reputation precedes us. The village? Oh, nope. She talks to the trees. Yep, this is the token hippie chick for this game. Santi, of course, is in disbelief that trees can talk while he's talking to a magical dream animal that follows him around. Apparently the trees know all of our secrets, which raises the question of where the trees learned about us. That's Lillian. Of course, she has legitimate character development, or an interesting character, I should say, which means we'll probably be rummaging around inside her brain later in the game. But enough of that. We've met everybody we're going to meet in this series of cutscenes. Let's go back to the temple. Or we could see a cutscene. Meanwhile, back at the ranch. It's important to note, for the most part, the Queen has absolutely no idea what Bumble's been doing the entire time. She has no idea we've lost the keys, she has no idea we've come into contact with Stompy and that he can use the dream instruments, which is relevant for this cutscene. Also, she knows his name, which is interesting because Stompy gave it to him, and as I said, she has no idea what's going on. She's also concerned that he will complete his mission in time, which sort of makes me wonder why, you know, if they knew the Black Calamity was approaching, they didn't send people like a year in advance, you know, like maybe or at least 6 months, you know, give it a little time. The one who's capable of wielding them. I think we know who that is. Is it Hannah? This is a good sign. Doors are supposed to do that, right? And say hello to our suitably generic eldritch evil villain with his suitably generic evil laugh. He sounds about as evil as Bumble sounds cute when he laughs. Yeah, well, things are going well. Meanwhile, back at the other ranch. Any minute now. Man, I didn't even get a loading screen. Sleepy Hill, back at the temple. I love how Bumble's jump is sort of laughably short, such that it's actually harder to get up the stairs riding him than it is just to go straight with Stompy. Here he is, of course, apparently examining the wall. I guess that's all the headway he can make in this little area. He's that incompetent at examining these ruins. He's never even made it inside. Maybe he's just easily fascinated by walls. Maybe he's a geologist. Anyway, the first thing we should do... Well, actually, the first thing we should do is to open up the door, but the first thing we will do is to check out this teleporter that requires the 10 dream energy to access. Now that we're at 12. Keep in mind, we are still basically 2 entire levels away from actually needing to do this, so we're just going to check out this corridor and leave. This will probably be the last time you actually see this, because I'll just skip straight to the opening of the door in the future. And doing this will give us our second threshold, 20 dream energy, which as you can imagine is just as easy to get to as 10. We better, and we will. That is how I like to play my games. Again, nothing much to see here. The Dream Temple is not particularly complicated as hub worlds go. There's basically nothing here but a bunch of corridors, and now the orange and purple doors to go with the yellow, indigo, and blue ones that we have in the previous room, and the black and white ones that bumble open. Spoiler alert, I'm pretty sure you can figure out, assuming you have basic knowledge of the colors of the rainbow, what's behind the 20 Dream Energy threshold. Anyway, now that we've done that, let's go actually use the indigo key that we picked up in Florence's dream, with the blue door out in the back. The indigo one is right here. The puzzles behind this door are actually marginally difficult in the sense that you'll have to spend more than 5 seconds thinking about them like we did behind the yellow door. Let's go inside, and predictably, the intro is exactly the same as the yellow area. So let's go inside and we'll check it out tomorrow.